Hello everyone, I hope you're having a good day. Find me sat in the back garden. It's 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Yeah. I hope you all had a busy day. I have not. I've been at home today with my lovely wifey and kids all day because it's MOT day for the van. And it's not gone very well. But that's an entirely different story. So, today's topic, what should we talk about? Let's talk about hiring vans. Is it a good idea to hire a van? Should you hire a van? Well, let me tell you a story first. So back in December 2021, the 4th of December to be exact, I broke down. I broke down in Dunoon, Scotland, and it took me a while to get recovered, basically. And the crafter came back, and eventually, I think it was the 7th or the 8th of December, it ended up at the garage. And we knew the problem, we diagnosed the issue. It was the gearbox and the drive shaft, but we had an issue getting parts. Obviously, at the end of 2021, start of 2022, we still had COVID in the air. We still had everything going on, and we had a lack of vehicle parts in the country for some reason. So we had to order them in from Germany. Not great on the lead up to Christmas. So December, I decided to have the entire month off. Yes, you may think I'm stupid, and in hindsight, I was. But I had the entire month off, and I spent it with my wife, and I spent it with Freddie because he was a baby, and we hadn't had Finley at that point. So January comes around, and I decided to hire a van. The 3rd of January, I hired a van. I hired an extra long wheelbase because that's the sort of van I need. The Crafter's 4 metre. I need something that's 4 metres or bigger. And I hired it for 28 days. So that was the entire month of January up to the 31st of January. And it cost £1,200 including VAT to hire the van. It's a lot of money. And then the insurance on the van was only standard comprehensive insurance. It wasn't hire and reward. I didn't have goods in transit on it, so I had to move my insurance over. And then obviously you still got to keep insurance on your normal van because it might be parked on the road, they might need to test it, they might need to drive it. Insurance for you. So that brings me to the topic. Hiring a van. Is it worth it? Let's break it down into a couple of different sections. So, hiring a van if your van breaks down. It all depends on how long your van's going to be off the road for, in my opinion. So if your van's going to be off the road for a week, I would recommend you have a week off. Spend some time with your family. Catch up on that admin work that we're all running behind on. Chase them overdue invoices, because, people don't pay on time. I've made a few payment mistakes recently myself, but I managed to sort them all out, so everyone's happy, and they're only a day late, so most people got paid early. I've got midges, you see them. Anyway, if it's going to be months, or a month, or months like my van was, so my van broke down on the 4th of December, and I got it back on the 4th of February. So for the entire month of January, I was hiring vans. If it's going to be months, I'd definitely consider it because you don't want to be out of work for that long. But you've got to think of the cost. Like I said, it was for the 28 days, the month of January for me was £1,200 plus VAT, and they did me a deal because my father-in-law, thank you very much, used to work in a different department at that company, and they gave him a deal for me. Really appreciate that. And you've got to also think, if you have finance or anything like that on your other van, you're still going to be paying that. Like I had finance on my other van, so £1,200 for one van for the month, £440 for the van that's stationary and sat there doing nothing for the month, It's a lot of money, and you've got to figure out if your profit margins are high enough to be able to get that extra van and still make money whilst running it. And then obviously you need the insurance on both vehicles, because you can't leave your broken down van uninsured in case someone decides to steal it, vandalise it, crash into it, or your mechanic needs to take it for a drive. You don't want it to be uninsured, anything like that. You just need to make sure that obviously both vehicles are insured. So there's a lot of cost into it. Obviously, if you own your vehicle outright and your insurance doesn't cost very much, so because you've been driving for 30 years, then the costs are negligible. But still, you've got to make sure you make enough profit to cover the hire van and still make profit. Like, the last thing you want to be doing is hiring a van and then working and not making anything at the end of it. Though if you do have customers, it will keep your customers happy, but that just depends whether you have customers or not. If you're running on the CX and you're hiring a van, then you've got to add your new van over to the CX. That can take a little bit of time now, untrusted, etc. So the second option, well, the second thing, hiring a van for your full-time vehicle. So you don't have a van, you're just starting out, and you're thinking, should I buy a van or should I hire a van? Now, personally, I would recommend you buy a van. It's an asset to yourself and your company, and you can do exactly what you want with it. You can modify it if you want to, you can put extra lights on it if you want to, you can do whatever you want. It's your vehicle. If you hire a van on a long-term hire, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So I was looking at hiring a van, and I spoke to a big, well-known vehicle hire company that specialises in commercial vehicles, and I got a couple of quotes. So when they say it like this, it doesn't sound that expensive. So for a brand new extra long wheelbase 4.2 metre Sprinter, they were asking £48 plus VAT per day. But if that's a standard month, that's over £1,400 a month plus VAT. It's quite a chunk of money, and that's for a Sprinter. Whereas you could, if you had a deposit, you could put a deposit down and buy one for £500 a month. And a finance deal over 4 or 5 years, and then you own the vehicle and you can do as you wish with the vehicle. They also had a mileage limitation on that. I did, when I wanted the quote, I went for the higher mileage limitation. It was 100,000 miles a year, because that's roughly what I do. I do between 80 and 100,000 miles a year. But then the good points about hiring a van is, especially from that company, is tyres were included. Whenever you need a new tyre, you could drop straight in, they'll do it straight away. Servicing was included. MOT wasn't included because they only run the vans for 3 years and then they get rid of them, so they never actually get MOT'd. But any work you needed doing on the vehicle, apart from accident work, any issues with the vehicle was sorted by them, and they would give you a replacement vehicle whilst your vehicle's being repaired or serviced or whatever you needed. Which is a good point about hiring a vehicle. You don't have them running costs. Well, you still have the fuel costs and the insurance costs, but you don't have the maintenance costs. They're included in that monthly amount. But I would, if you can, I would recommend you get your own vehicle. Whether that's you start off with an older vehicle, which is cheaper to buy, you can either put a deposit down and get the finance agreement, or you can buy it outright, which is great if you can, but most people can't. But obviously with hiring a vehicle, 99% of the time, if you're a new customer and you're taking out a long-term hire, this is for a 12-month minimum hire, by the way, these prices. If you wanted to hire it for less time, it was more money, and they only did a 3-month minimum. So if you don't have that deposit to start with, or you don't have any money in the bank and you're wanting to start, obviously hiring is probably the way for you to do it. But I really wouldn't recommend it because it's a lot of money, and when the vehicle goes back, there's a lot of terms and conditions that you need to read, because if it goes back with any sort of damage, apart from really minor wear and tear, you'll get charged for it. I remember when I worked at the previous company, we took a van back after the 3 years. We'd had it run it for 3 years. It had about 250,000 miles on the clock. We'd had a couple of issues with it. It'd been in and out. They'd seen it plenty of times, and then they sent us a bill for 8 grand for bodywork repairs, for minor scratches and damages all around the van. £8,000. Obviously, you've got to pay that because it's in the terms and conditions. And then a few weeks after paying that, we saw the van in the exact same condition we dropped it off on for sale through their sister website. They just pocketed the money and sold the van on. And then next, you could hire a van for a day or two if your van's going in for an MOT or for a major service. Don't bother. Have the day off. Just relax. Have 1-2 days off. It doesn't matter. You don't need to hire a van for that short of a period. So that is my opinion. Anyway, I've actually been asked a fair few times about hiring vans, whether I would recommend it or not. Personally, avoid it if you can. Obviously, if you don't have that deposit, you don't have any money to buy a van, it's going to be your only option to do it, but try and get as short of a term period as possible, because if you don't like what you're doing, or you don't like the van and you want to give it back, you don't want to have to pay to get out of that 12-month agreement, which you'll have to do. So I hope that helps some of you out. Some of you asked about it. Some of the people will be thinking maybe to replace their van when it gets a bit older, they might hire, like I was thinking. But no, I think I'm still leaning towards buy. And that's my opinion. Leave your opinion down below. If you hire a van, let me know how much it costs, because obviously van prices range small to big. I know Dave Anvil's hired a few vans from Salford Van Hire, and they actually include a Courier insurance policy, so you don't have to have your insurance policy onto you, but he's only ever got small vans, and they weren't that expensive because obviously the small vans. But yeah, leave your opinion down below. If you've rented a van, let me know how much it cost you and if it was worth it to you. And please like and subscribe, because only 50% of the people that watch this video actually subscribe. Thank you. Good night.